Hi, this is Narinak with another episode thoughts for Sailor Moon Crystal. This for episode 17. And we're still pretty much continuing on with the whole Sailor Moon R storyline. And I think one thing that's really jumped out on me is just how much, I guess, actual story goes on in like these chapters, as it definitely feels like we're getting quite a bit kind of cut out of what was originally in the manga and the anime version. But at the same time, you can tell that it's mainly because there just is not, the time time within the episode to actually include those scenes. And I guess I never really kind of realized that when I was reading the manga, just kind of how the R, I guess, saga is just a little bit more denser, I guess, story-wise than the original Dark Kingdom storyline. But of course, that's not really a bad thing, because I think these episodes are definitely some of, I guess, the stronger ones. And, even though the things that they cut out, they're all kind of minor things, and they always make sure that they cover like the big things. This episode, of course, we get a bit of a focus on Sailor Jupiter, because like Mars and Mercury before, she in the end ends up getting kidnapped by the Dark Moon. So it's kind of frustrating with these episodes because we are getting like those three Sailor Guardians kind of taken out of the picture for a while. But at the same time, at least now that we've gotten these first three episodes out of the way, we should hopefully be getting closer to when they come back into the storyline, or as pretty much active participants in it. As that actually kind of really makes me happy, because it also means that we are just that much closer to getting the Sailor Pluto's debut, our episode debut. Though technically this episode should have had it, as in the manga we do get a quick like flash of, or at least one panel where we get to actually see Sailor Pluto. But we don't get that in this episode, but we do get to hear her voice. And of course, Chibi Usa going ahead and, saying the name Pluto. So there's definitely movement towards that, which makes me happy, because I love Pluto, and I'm really looking forward to, having her in the series, especially since with the manga version, she's in it a lot more and plays a little bit of a bigger role than what she did in like the original anime adaptation. That said, I guess like the big change is so much with the Makoto. She gets sick this episode, and in the manga she originally runs into Motoki's younger sister and him, and she ends up going to a doctor for it all before she runs into Asanuma. But with this, they just kind of cut all of that out and have her just run directly in, have Asanuma kind of find her sick and kind of accompany her back to her apartment, where we have like pretty much the same scene as we had in the manga, where we find out that, Asanuma definitely has a bit of a crush on her, and also the fact that he's figured out that Makoto and her friends, like Usagi and such, definitely are not normal human beings. So we have that, and actually I guess that's one thing I kind of really like about the manga, where in the anime, it's always considered that no one kind of figures out who, the Sailor Guardians are, what their identities are, but in the manga, we do have characters that kind of figure that out, Asanuma being one of them. And I don't know, I just kind of like that, I guess because it seems a little bit more realistic, especially since, you know, the girls, they don't like majorly change how they look, maybe what they wear, but not their actual features, and it's not like they're running around in a mask. So it just kind of makes a little bit of sense. I guess another thing that I really like about, you know, the Crystal adaptation of Sailor Moon is the fact that we do get pretty much the manga version of Chibi Usa. And the manga version of Chibi Usa, of course, is a much nicer character than what she was in the original anime series. I know in the original anime, her character could get really grating at times because they really played up like her childishness and her brattiness. While in the manga, even though, you know, there are times where she can be bratty and stuff, there's also times where, you know, she very much isn't. Like we see in this episode at the very start when she goes and tries to like cheer Usagi up. Even though, you know, she's not very straightforward with pretty much the reasons for her actions and stuff. I mean, she's a little kid, so it kind of makes sense, but she's a lot easier to kind of feel for, unlike in the original anime where she just, overall I remember her being a very grating character, you know, just a character that kind of got on her nerves for the most part. But like I said, with Crystal, we get pretty much her manga version, which again is just a much more sympathetic version of that character, and it just makes a lot more sense overall. And well, yeah, overall that, you know, characters actually care for her, which seems really harsh, I guess. A harsh critique of that original anime. That said, one thing I didn't notice about this episode is that we got quite a bit of iffy animation in this one. Of course, by this time, it's pretty much a given that a lot of this will be cleaned up and will look much nicer for the home video release. But yeah, this is definitely one of the episodes where things don't seem to stay quite on model very well. So if that's a distraction for you, then prepare to be quite distracted then. Which is kind of a pity because overall I rather like this episode, and it would be nice to have some better animation for it. And let's see. What have I not touched upon? I think I more or less have. Oh, I guess with the enemy side of things, we do, through them we get this flash of Neo Queen Serenity, which I guess is another big thing that kind of comes in with this episode. And, of course, we're not really explained who she is, though we know that, you know, it's someone who looks exactly like Usagi, and, of course, if you're familiar with the manga, or even the original anime series, you know exactly who this character is. It's pretty obvious. There's, like, no foreshadowing at this point. It's future Usagi. Of course, we also learn that, you know, she doesn't age or anything, as he brings up that when looking at Mars and Mercury, as he wonders if they share the same power as her. So there's definitely a lot of little plot things. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, these chapters actually seem rather dense when it comes to plot, when kind of like compared to the previous storyline. We get quite a bit of like information, I guess, on that, where we kind of have a little bit more of an idea of what Prince Diamante, I hope I'm not screwing that up, but what his kind of ideas or what his plans are. fact that, you know, he wants the silver crystal to pretty much just destroy it. And he said to, like, then kind of show that to that woman, which I guess we can only assume means the Neo Queen Serenity at this point. So I guess that's kind of coming together a little bit more. And of course, I do feel bad for, like, the Spectre sisters in this version, because in the original anime, I think they did really well in fleshing them out as characters, while in the manga and of course in the Crystal versions, they're pretty much cannon fodder as we go through yet another sister with this episode. So that's kind of sad to see, but you know, it is what it is. Other than that, there's really not much else to say. I mean, since this is, it feels like this episode, you know, is juggling a lot with, like, these reveals of the villains, furthering this whole mystery with Chibi Usa and, like, where she is and where she comes from. And then of course, you know, putting some focus on Makoto to learn more about her, as it's with this that we learn that her parents died when, you know, she was a young child. And that, you know, she's basically living alone. And yeah, so it's kind of like juggling all those three things. So I think the battle at the end, I was kind of disappointed with it. I just felt that there should have been just a little bit more to it. That there was, since it seemed like it went by just so fast. And I think it's just kind of falling into that issue where they are trying to cram a lot into these episodes right now. And it's not so easy to do. But still, rather enjoyed it overall. Really looking forward to the next one, especially since, you know, now that we've had, like, the three Guardians kidnapped, it's more or less kind of moving forward to finally go ahead and, you know, we'll pretty much go to the future. We gotta meet Pluto, and then we'll eventually get the rest back. And I'm looking forward to seeing that whole part of this story arc. I kind of feel like these first three episodes are basically just kind of the first part of it. The second part is just getting them to the future and kind of learning everything what's going on. And then, of course, the next part is basically everything that kind of leads to that final battle for this. And I think with that, that more or less wraps up everything I have to say. So thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe to my channel, leave a like or comment. Until next time, bye.